I was just saying with regards to the Charter City thing, for software companies, everyone's software stack is tech debt now after
Yeah.
OpenAI's release, alongside like latest software innovation, also hardware innovation. Charter cities that are going to be building natively with the new tech stack are going to have an interesting point of view. I love what cul-de-sac has done, but it's a very traditional build. So I don't think it's going to happen tomorrow, but someone's going to get the timing right.
They have to get the politics right though too, right? Like where they actually put it and how they can get autonomy from the legal frameworks that they operate in. Before OpenAI held their demo day, Sam Altman basically spent how many days in Washington, D.C. in the last months, right?
I see, yeah.
Didn't Joe Biden announce his AI executive order on Monday?
Right.
Like yesterday, was it? No, a week ago. I am in the camp to believe that there is some like scare tactics, scaremongering going on, and that these orders are a bit of a handout to the incumbents and vested interests in the systems. And the UK held their AI safety summit, and you see all these heads of state parade into this very traditional looking conference and take the group photo, and you're like, what could they have possibly discussed that is going to help move the world forward or protect us?
The art, right?
Yeah.
So it's a nod to some interesting symbolism.
Yeah.
There's definitely an element of attempted regulatory capture. Open market is open enough. There was a couple of things pointed out in the executive order that were not positive for open source, but it didn't kill open source, and the EO is not binding, and I certainly don't see things slowing down.
Yeah, there's no way things are slowing down.
Yeah. And I'm increasingly convicted by the kind of open source arguments that like to have say, I think it was Jan LeCun, would there be Skynet if there was open source AI? Because what's already starting to happen is people are doing interesting safety work and red teaming on the open source AIs. But you have all different sorts of actors with different points of view all over the world. I'm glad people are thinking about the downside, but we have to allow this stuff to continue to advance.
Yeah. Yeah, it is advancing. Have you played around with X.AI?
I have not yet, no.
There's so many, it feels, competitors that are popping up.
Yeah, there's tons. There already seems to be enough open source foundation models that are well funded that it's not going to be just OpenAI and Anthropic. Although they are in the pole position, and it's a good competitive environment and the benefits are going to come down to the consumers.
We should also talk about Mark Andreessen's Techno-Optimist Manifesto.
I skimmed it.
Yeah.
Actually, what I read was his references, and I read some old economists that were basically talking about the history of economics and technology, and a lot of the patterns apply. So I generally agree with the title. What's important is people recognizing that technology is a prime mover in our world, or like the prime mover, and we should recognize its importance, design policies around it, and not be afraid of it, and acknowledge that like all of our economic wealth and social surplus is due to the fact that we have technology. And the only way we're going to have more economic wealth in the future is if we have a growing pie, and we have to continue to create an environment where innovation can happen and flourish. Obviously, we should protect against the downsides, but like too often protecting against the downside sounds like blatant attempts at regulatory capture. Yeah, so I think it's finding that balance.
Here's my push on it. So I buy everything that you say and the techno-optimist narrative, but we have to do more to create more creators instead of consumers. And that our biggest risk is a Wall-E-like situation where you have a bunch of people who don't really do any work, who get obese and crass and consume reality TV like we were talking about before. And the only way to solve that is through education and investing in young people. And right now, we're telling millennials, like people our age in their working years, that they should be home healthcare workers for the elderly instead of early childhood educators and parents to the next generation. And after 35, you're like done from a techno point of view. Like the technology that you've adopted is that's native to you. That's it. You're not reopening that door. So like the young people today are like AI and their cell phones and mobile is infused in everything they do. So we need to have more really smart people who are our age, like late 30s, 40s, having kids, but also building up the systems and investing in getting those kids the best ethical mental health and education so that they can help build the infrastructure that's going to move our society forward, because we're mostly out to pasture.
Yes, absolutely. Completely agree. What you're referencing is that Douglas Adams quote that says basically everything that gets invented before the time you were born or up until you're 15 is just the natural order, the way things are. It's basically like fish in water. Anything that gets invented between the time you're 15 to 35 is cool and new and potentially something you can make a career in.
Yes.
And anything that gets invented after 35 is against the natural order and like a stain on whatever. But we're in a different era with technology now. Like where technology was like slowly plotting and doing its thing, and components were interconnecting with each other, and the change would happen on the scale of a year or a decade or even a month. And now it happens day by day, and like we just see it, and it's no longer an invisible, unseen force. And I think this idea that technology is against the natural order is just it's not going to hold up in the future. And so people can't think like that anymore.
I'm 37, and so AI really has come on the scene after I was 35, and I'm just not going to be able to keep up career-wise on this.
Right.
And I also don't want to either. I'm like, oh, I want to go for a walk and see nature and spend time with my family. And I think that's all okay as long as our society is investing in the next generation of people who can and that's why young people are more important than ever, because it is moving faster. And so you need more people who are up on that curve.
Agree completely. Civilization is basically designed for humans. And like the core institutions of civilization are education and culture. And we've been doing this for a while. If you go look back at education theorists, they got some pretty good ideas. About 100 years ago, Maria Montessori and John Dewey and Rudolf Steiner and some others like have nailed it, basically. Ethical, creative centered. And obviously we need to refactor that for the current situation. It seems to me that like we designed it for humans, it being society and civilization, and just because of the way things work, laws don't sunset, institutions get bloated. We need to shake up our institutions, and it's not like reinvent them. It's just like bring them back and recenter them on what they're supposed to be doing, which is helping humans be good humans. And especially in the context of education, it's very clear to me what needs to happen in education. Move from a system-centered model to a student-centered model.
Yeah.
There's a lot to unpack there, but that seems very obvious. People have been saying that for a while. I think what's cool about the new AI stuff, and to your point about, I don't think I'm going to be able to get totally native on it, which is true and fair, and no one would expect us to. But what's different about this technology than other technologies is like it's so intuitive to us. If you watched the demo yesterday, it's natural language and it's natural speech. And it really is, in some ways, the culmination of so much work of previous generations of technologists coming to a synthesis that's like going to be super powerful. The next generation is going to run with it, but the generations behind us who are going to live a lot longer, have a ton of disposable income. I think there are interesting businesses to make there. I mean, to pivot to a VC point of view. With
OpenAI, the thing that is obviously very visible is the like images and the software and the things that almost seem like toys to us. But behind that are a ton of researchers and geneticists that are building biomedical pharma products to help extend lifetimes and treat disease in some more human some of the more human tech.
True. Yeah, it's going to have an impact in every domain. But I think what's interesting about OpenAI as an entity, and I'm not an OpenAI watcher like some of these other people, but a lot of people have pointed it is both a platform and a product. And you saw it, yesterday was supposed to be a developer conference, and they released like basically people were saying it's red wedding vibes. And we're going to kill your startup and give you $500 in OpenAI credits.
Yeah.
Which is, if that was intentional, that's just chef's kiss. But
do you think they really killed a bunch of startups? Was it the red wedding?
yeah, I think there were some ideas and some things that became unviable, but I think you could have seen the writing on the wall, and those founders should have been going deeper on some customer problem, and they can pivot and they will build on the new platform. And I think the way to build now is be aware that you're riding a wave, but also be looking behind and seeing that there's another wave coming. The businesses that are going to be successful on top of OpenAI and the other LLMs are those that can build a unique data set that's proprietary to them, and then can leverage the LLM capabilities to deliver some consumer experience.
How do you develop a unique data set without distribution already? That's where it seems like it's a...
Well, yeah, that's it. That's the name of the game.
Yeah.
You got to get in front. Either you do some kind of like nifty data analysis and you find data sets, or you go direct to consumer and get the data directly from them. And ultimately going to make more personalized experiences.
Yeah. It's really hard if you see the world that way to not think of this as just really solidifying incumbents who already have distribution.
That is potentially true, but
but there's always a way. Like someone will find a way. Like most people will not, but someone will.
Yeah, the simple headline from yesterday is like the era of AI agents is about to start.
Yeah.
And you saw they released the GPTs, basically creating your own customized chatbot that you can share with other people, which OpenAI is effectively going to call an app that you can sell much the way you sell in the Apple App Store, and like a very similar revenue share model, it sounds like. Look at the world economy today. Look at all the different industries, and you can just imagine there's going to be agents for literally every single thing.
Yeah, there already are. They're just not that great. You're like on
no, they're not.
And you're like, talk to a person.
Exactly. Yeah. But you were saying about health, and I was saying OpenAI is a platform and a product, and the product stuff really is like pure direct to consumer, just enabling kind of new capabilities. And then the platform stuff is meant to help other developers use AI to advance things like genetic mapping or some kind of biotech stuff. And it's just going to be interesting to see how they have both sides of this puzzle. And if they can continually disrupt their own customers, and how long that's all going to last.
Yeah. Today just feels more like yesterday in some ways. Coming out of the COVID era, we're now fully out. No one's talking about testing. No one's talking about masks. And I'm having way more in-person meetings than ever before. And I was like, oh yeah, this is normal. This is what it was like before.
You know that wait but why chart from like way back when about the exponential curve? It's like we actually are well into that exponential curve. Like the world GDP is going like this. It's not like we feel like we're on a cliff face, because civilization is scaled to human time. And while this technology is going to like next year, it's going to look quaint today, it's still going to be day by day slogging it out.
Especially in legacy industries and the quote built environment.
I want to talk about education. Like, this is the year of dipping your toe in the water pilots. And next year is the year of dipping your foot in the water pilots. And then we might be fully in the bathtub after that. But by that point, the water is going to be warm.
How much of that on education specifically do you think will be like helping the teacher do be better in the classroom. Leveling curriculums and like auto lesson plan generators, where the transformation is going to be, the teachers, they're not going to have to grade assignments anymore, and it's all going to be magical, but never really happens. So do you think that's actually going to happen in 3 years?
Yeah, I think that's happening now. I think the grading, the feedback, we're seeing some very interesting stuff. One of our nonprofit partners, PlayLab, is enabling teachers to build tools like that give automate. One way we've talked about it is giving writing teachers the same grading and feedback tools that math teachers have. Instantaneous. Here's what you did well. Here's what you didn't do well. And it's not like going to be 2 weeks later and you forget what you even wrote. It's not happening everywhere, but we see live case studies of it. My kind of general perspective on this is there's going to be incremental and disruptive, or there's going to be rather skeuomorphic and paradigm native stuff. Skeuomorphic being like, it looks like the previous generation. Faster horse carriages, the trash bin on your desktop or your laptop. And the education analog of that is Zoom class that looks exactly like a regular classroom, right? Like 20 students in a lecture and maybe breakout rooms. And I think we're in a phase where AI is going to take the existing model and just make it a little bit more efficient. So you don't need to grade every paper, and you can, instead of having to manually level texts, the AI is doing it for you. I think when things become native to the paradigm, it's going to look like basically Montessori and Dewey Lab School all the way through college and lifelong learning. And now we have the infrastructure and the data model to do it with large language models. But before, it would have been really hard to do that at scale. I don't think that the US public system is going to look like Montessori in high school for a couple of years, but probably by the end of the decade, it's going to start looking more and more like that. High school is going to be like college, where you get certain industry in-demand programs and credentials, and like you're starting your lifelong learning journey that is going to last for 80 years or 180 years, depending on how long people live for. In the intermediate time, you're going to see these AI tools have incremental improvements on the teacher's role, on student experience. And once that's normalized, we'll go a step deeper.
What do you think happens with higher ed?
You'll see a lot of college credit in high school. You'll see a lot of brand new approaches to college, to credentialing, to industry certification, either like businesses building their own colleges or businesses that are colleges as a service for employers. I also think you're going to Columbia and Harvard, although they're not everyone's favorite institution right now, I think they're going to still exist. It's just a question of what share of the graduating high school students they're going to get. That number's been going down. It's going to continue to go down. It's not going to go to zero, right? It's not going to go to 50%. Maybe it'll go to 50, something like 75% right now of people who go to a college or going to a 4-year college. It seems untenable that the price and effectiveness trend lines are just like going the complete opposite direction of every other consumer good, the consumerization of EdTech. And it's good for 16 and 18-year-olds to like have a real ROI conversation with themselves and their parents or their caregivers about what it means. And I think that's going to be a big force for driving better outcomes. Because at the end of the day, Harvard and Columbia, they got beautiful campuses and they got great storied histories, but they're not like hyper effective learning organizations. Hyper effective learning organizations are the things we invest in, and they can learn a lot from those people. Hopefully they will.
It's an interesting trend to pair with like remote work and hybrid work and what that looks like going forward. Because if you look at the demand curve for remote work, millennials are like the highest demand, and Gen Z actually wants to be more back in the office. And I think the reason for that is that the younger you are, the more you need to be sitting next to someone older than you that's teaching you the ways. It's like helping you in almost a real-time basis get up the professionalism curve and think about the world in a productive way. I don't think people design like we like the pendulum swung a little bit too much in the totally remote.
I agree. I agree. Yeah,
As much as I love working from home, but if I have had young employees, there's just no way you could do that.
There's nothing like in person. But people will rethink the 4 years full-time college idea. One thing I'd love to see, more service years.
Yeah, for sure.
An idea that's been in the water for a while. We've talked about unbundling college. It's basically like the big thing of my personal angel investments.
It's the OG avalanche.
It's the OG avalanche. And there's a lot of ways to cut the unbundling, but one of them is just time.
Yeah.
Do different semesters in different places, doing different things, different industries, work-based learning, service-based learning, travel-based learning. There's going to be all different formulations. I don't think college is going to evaporate. College is like in the pole position of the #1 consumer good of all time.
Yeah.
Maybe AI chatbots are going to beat it in 10 years, but like for now, it's the reigning champ. And I don't think that's going to change. People like to learn.
On Netflix, I was watching this documentary called Bama Rush, which is about Alabama's like sorority rush season, which apparently took over TikTok last year because it was like the ultimate reality TV. And so there's all these women in high school who go to Alabama just to rush an Alabama sorority. And they're talking about how sororities were traditionally these institutions to help women debut themselves to society and have values and poise and manners and everything. It's social education.
Absolutely.
And when usually people talk about the unbundling of higher ed, they don't talk about the Greek system. The Greek system is actually like a real core part of the American higher education system.
For sure.
And the athletic apparatuses too, like the NCAA, even to be more explicit with those organizations about their role in educating the next generation. It's an interesting societal place to start.
Yeah, those things are going to exist. The football, the colleges with football teams and rock climbing walls and every academic program under the sun. Because that's just been the way that it's worked. And obviously there's like a lot of institutional scaffolding for that with how we finance higher ed. But talking to a friend with 2 kids in middle school right now, hasn't started saving for college. We're talking about what that bill's going to look like. Between 2 or 3 kids, you're talking about potentially over $1 million. It'd be hard to say that's a better investment than just giving them that money and be like, go start a startup with some scaffolding and community and supports. Or you might say, go into this program where the goal is to start a startup, or like the goal is to do literally anything that's real, because who knows what they're teaching on these campuses right now.
If interest rates are higher longer, which I believe they will be, and if there's like an economic recession that people say is coming and has to be coming, right? Because prices, everything is so expensive. And people are going into debt to make every part of their lifestyle work. Like it will hopefully make people really rethink and prioritize on a value for money basis, when really they've just thought, oh, my kid has to go to a 4-year college because if they don't, they're screwed because everyone does it. But we're going to be at a breaking point where you can't afford this.
Yeah, no, I think, the interest rates is might be the straw that breaks the camel's back, but there's a lot of things working against it. And you're right, like that, if that just continues and people are going to be looking at these bills and just getting sticker shock.